Chapter 16. It had been a small, beautiful wedding. Brook and Jonas exchanged vows and looked wonderful together. The perfect handsome man and beautiful young bride. Vogue magazine couldn't have captured a more handsome couple standing against a backdrop of ocean waves, the sun setting, colorful flowers, Brook's mother crying with happiness, and then there's Alex unhappy trying to smile if only to make Jonas feel better. She wondered what happened to Max, as did Jonas. Brook acted as if she loved Jonas, and for his and Alex's sake she hoped Brook did. No one would have known their secrets but Alex, but from Alex's observation Brook's family knew more than they were letting on. Jonas's best man hadn't made it yet, and he felt downhearted. After the ceremony, Jonas strode up to Alex sitting in a corner. She'd been on her feet the entire day, and finally gave in to exhaustion. When Jonas discovered her sitting alone, while everyone around drank and ate, Alex had been staring at her phone all evening. What happened to Max? He promised me that he'd be my best man. I counted on him being here. I just thought if he'd been to my first marriage, then I would have had more luck. You can't depend on luck and Max to make a marriage work, Jonas. You need to find the right woman for you. What are you trying to say, Alex, that Brook's not the right woman? Jonas's jaw tightened, and his eyes glowed in anger at Alex. That's not for me to say. I didn't say that, Jonas. She didn't say it, but she sure as hell meant just that. Alex reached to touch Jonas's hand, and he pulled it away. You're damn right. You never wanted me with her. You thought that all the attention would be taken away from you. Jonas's words and voice were harsh, breathless, and angry. You're drunk, Jonas. Go find your wife. I'm not drunk. If I had met you instead of Max, I wouldn't have all this shit running around my head. I don't know what happened to her. I think she's next door. What's next door? That's where she used to live with Mark. Do you mean to tell me that Mark is in that house, and you think that Brook is over there with him? As Alex and Jonas talked, with Jonas taking a sip of liquor and looking in the direction of Mark's home, Brook's father and mother walked over. We're going to leave now, Jonas. Tell Brook we're leaving early in the morning, and there's no need to bother coming by the hotel, because we have an early morning flight back to Georgia. When you and Brook move into your mansion, then we'll be back to spend some time with her, Brook's father said. Alex noticed that he didn't inquire where she'd disappeared to right after the wedding. The two teenagers said goodbye, and they stepped into Jonas's rented limo after their parents, and it took off with Jonas and Alex staring and then eyeing each other. When the car disappeared from the driveway, Alex snapped. You're buying a mansion, Jonas? I didn't know that. I don't have to tell you everything, Alex. I'm married now, and I think that's between me and my wife. Where is she? Isn't she your wife? Why are you asking me? Besides, I think you know. Alex watched Jonas slip into a submissive, heartbroken man. This wasn't half the man she'd seen in New York. He'd been the master. She reached for Jonas and brought him into her arms. Holding on to Alex, he confessed, Alex, I don't know what to do. I think she's with Mark. Maybe I can't give her what she needs? Let's face it, Jonas, can anyone give the ones we love everything they need? No, Alex, you're right. You couldn't give me what I needed. Alex took the glass away. You're drunk and tired. You haven't had any rest. Go to bed, I'll find Brook and bring her here. It appeared that all Alex ever did was take care of Jonas. When was that going to end? She thought, as she traipsed around the path leading to the sprawling ranch-style home. When she walked to the patio doors, she could see two figures. Both were naked, and the man was on his knees wearing a collar, and from the back she saw Brook standing tall with black leather boots with spiked heels. In her hand she held a chain that held the collar, and she had a crop in her hands. With the spiked heel of her boot, tracing down his spine, stopping at his hole, she used the crop to give him one hard lash as she ground her heel, teasing his tight ring of muscles, with her spiked heel tunneling into it. On the couch next to Mark and Brook laid a cock's cage and butt plug. Mark had been. There were moans of pleasure coming from him, as Mark asked her to impale his balls. "I don't need them anyway," he moaned as he craned his head to look around at Brook. Alex couldn't hold her anger. "What the fuck, Brook? Have you lost your mind?" Alex questioned. "You know what you're doing?" Brook took her foot and pushed Mark down to the floor. "I know exactly what I'm doing. Why don't you go back to Jonas? Keep him company until I get back. I don't care. Suck his dick. Do something because I'm busy, and I'm not leaving Mark until I've disciplined him." There was no talking to her. There was no way to reason with Brook. Brook thought she knew how to discipline men who had been in love with her. She thought she knew men. She thought she could move from one man to the other without any consequences, toy with them, humiliate them, but she knew very little about men, Alex thought. "I have nothing else to say. But I warned you. If you hurt Jonas, I will." "I heard you, now leave us." There was a coldness in Brook's voice. She fooled Jonas because he'd always been trusting, and a fool for a beautiful ass. Alex walked away, and when she returned to the empty house except for her and Jonas, she found a bottle of vodka and poured herself one drink. On her way to the extra bedroom, she passed and looked in on Jonas. He'd fallen asleep across his bed. It was better that he sleep than to know about what his blushing bride had been up to with her ex. Jonas had been too tired what with staying up working at his bar, fucking and being abused by Brook, the drinking and wedding which had taken a toll on him. If Jonas hadn't had his plate full, Brook wouldn't have been next door. She would have been working her trade on Jonas, and like Mark, he would have enjoyed every minute of it. But it was something about Brook that let Alex know that she wouldn't be satisfied with one or two men even. She appeared to have an addiction, and everyone knows addicts can't help themselves. Maybe that's what Jonas knew, Alex thought. In any case, that was between Jonas and his blushing bride. Alex had been tired too, with all the work left for her to do. She'd managed to undress and glance at her phone. Still nothing from Max. How could he let her down? No. How could he let Jonas down? She'd become used to it, but not anymore. She'll put her foot down and take control of her husband this time. In a way, Alex admired Brook, and in another way, she loathed her for what she'd done to Jonas. Those were Alex's last thoughts as she lay in the bed thinking of Max and imagining about Jonas's life, how he could have been if he hadn't gone to Afghanistan, and if he'd found the right woman for him. When Alex opened her eyes, the sun was rising and peeking through the shutters. Then she heard something pop like a firecracker. She sat up in bed, blinked her eyes listening for another sound, but nothing came. Alex waited a few more minutes before her feet hit the floor. When she'd focused, she realized that it wasn't a firecracker, but the sound of gunfire. When her mind caught up, she knew it was indeed a gunshot. The sound had been clear. It hadn't come from outside. It had come from inside the house. Oh my God. He killed her. No. No. Jonas would never do that. He killed himself, Alex murmured, her voice rising and then sinking to a whisper. She didn't want to face what she had to, seeing Jonas lying in a pool of his own blood. His handsome face unrecognizable. His eyes dark and lifeless. She stood in one spot wearing only her gown. She was still standing there when her mind said to her that she had to face this, whatever it was. Where are you, Max? Why haven't you come? I don't want to face this alone, she thought, as she crept slowly and cautiously down the foyer leading to Jonas's room until she reached his door. Breathlessly, she placed her palm against the door, and it creaked open. There on the bed next to Jonas, lying in his lap, was Brook. He'd cradled her in his arms, rocking her back and forward, with his hands frantically holding her neck to hold back the blood seeping out. There was so much blood on Jonas, Alex couldn't tell who had been shot. Alex stared, and when she tried to approach Jonas, he didn't see her, but she heard him saying, "Don't die. I'll get help. Help is coming. Just hang in there, buddy. Hang in there." Alex realized that Jonas thought he'd been in combat, and Brook had been a fallen soldier. When Alex walked close enough to get Jonas's attention, she saw a gun on the floor, and next to the gun, Mark laid stretched out with a bullet wound to the head. Turning and rushing out of the room to retrieve her phone and call the police, she'd left her phone in her room. Before she could get halfway, the bell rang. She turned in a circle and headed for the front door. She thought maybe someone had heard the shot and called the police. She opened the door, and standing there was the police. Please come in. Are you Mrs. Alexander Blackstone?" "Yes." "Please come in," Alex demanded. "My brother-in-law had a terrible accident." "We didn't come for that, Mrs. Blackstone. We came to inform you that your husband's plane, the one he'd been flying, crashed in a field not far from here." Alex blinked and stared. "Did you hear me? Your husband's plane crashed and they think he's dead." "I need to sit. I can't see. It's going black," Alex said. "Do you need us to do anything? Call someone?" "I need you to go in the room to your right. There has been 2 murders, and my brother-in-law didn't kill his wife. He's the one in the room alive." The 2 policemen rushed down the hallway and opened the door. Alex heard one officer call for an ambulance, the coroner, forensic, and detectives. When forensic and the coroner had left, there were only 2 people who remained in the house after the detectives pulled out of the driveway. It was now dark and 10 p.m. And they'd questioned Jonas, who had been in shock. Throughout the day and night, somewhere Jonas found the strength to understand what had happened to Brook. However, Alex had asked the policeman not to say anything to Jonas about Max. "What are we going to do, Alex? The detective said for us not to leave town. What's Max going to say after this? You know I didn't kill Brook. I loved her as much as I could love a woman." Alex wiped the tears away that had pooled in her eyes. She turned to look at Jonas only because she could hear his voice, but she heard very little of what he'd said to her. She stared at Jonas as her eyes wandered around the kitchen. "I have to call the children to see if they're okay. What did I do with my phone? Oh yeah, it's in the room. I don't feel like going there now." Her voice was low, as if she had no emotions. "What's wrong, Alex? That's not like you. You never cry. Why are you crying? You didn't know Brook, and you didn't like her that much, but she was sweet, and I know if she had lived, that she'd have made me a great wife." "There's something you don't know, Jonas." Alex placed her palms on both sides of his face. "There was no time to tell you. The policemen came not because someone called them, because Max was flying one of his planes, not his jet. The plane went down near Miami, and they think he's dead." Jonas' mouth parted to say something, and he couldn't. It stayed in an open position as if he'd say something, but nothing came out. Then he forced words through his parted mouth. "Why us, Alex? Tell me why this keep happening to me and you. Tell me something that will make this night go away." "I can't. I don't have the answers. All I know is that I have children, and I will have to get it together for them." Jonas put his trembling hand over Alex's. I'll help you, Alex, in every way I can. I have to call Brook's parents and tell them what happened. I don't know if I can face them. I can't call tonight. I need some sleep. Jonas rose from his chair and walked in the direction of the cabinet. There were bottles of liquor still strewn around, and he picked up a bottle and drank it straight. Don't do that, Jonas. You're going to ruin your life if you start that again. I don't have any drugs, so this is the next best thing. I can't get through this night without something. I only have you, Alex. Jonas didn't listen to Alex. He put the bottle to his mouth and drank. When he'd had enough, he staggered as he held on to the back of the chair. Go to bed, Jonas. You'll probably be able to sleep now. I'm going to stay up. Only if you come into the room and watch over me. You can sleep in the bed, and I'll sleep on the floor, but I don't want to be away from you. We're all we have now. Jonas's legs weak, his eyes blurred with tears, stared at Alex until she capitulated and took his hand, leading him to bed. He placed his arm around her shoulders, and when they entered the extra bedroom at the back of the house, far away from the crime scene, Jonas fell on the bed, taking Alex down with him. He had a tight grip on her shoulder, as if he'd fallen into an ocean, and he'd latched on to Alex as if she was the last lifeline before he drowned. When she couldn't release his grip, she lay there and thought of Max, and she cried some more. She cried herself to sleep. When she woke, it was because she felt a presence in the dim-lit room. Who's there? Thoughts swirled around the room. Did she remember to lock the door when the detectives left? No, she had not. Wake up, Jonas, there's someone here. Wake up, Jonas, the loud baritone of a man's voice bellowed throughout the room. Why are you in bed with my wife? Oh my God, it's you, Max. How, when, where? Alex said, her voice filled with surprise and relief. But Max, in shock, couldn't know Alex's pain. He didn't see the pain on her face. He didn't hear her call out his name in the night, even as she slept next to Jonas with his arms wrapped around her, caging her in and pulling her to his chest. Is this what you do when you think I'm dead, Alex? Sleep with Jonas? Alex reached for Jonas's powerful arms, and somehow she'd pried herself loose from his grip and rose to her feet to embrace Max. He stepped back. You don't understand, Max. Alex's voice fragile, crying out for him to hold her. Her arms reaching, hoping he'd realize that she could never be with Jonas, she could never be unfaithful to him, and this was all a terrible misunderstanding. Max stood over her, dressed in a beautiful black suit that had been torn on the sleeves, singed by fire, and smelling of gasoline. His handsome face scarred, his eyes dark as his thoughts of Alex and Jonas. Make me understand, Max barked. His voice thundered, and Jonas opened his eyes. Until next time. Coming soon, Book 8 Black Label. If you haven't read the Blackstone saga, for your entertainment I have placed 2 bonus books, Book 1 and Book 2, below for your reading pleasure. You can get the first 6 books in a bundle, or buy them separately.